So there's been a lot of talk going around that Fallout 4 is a worse game than Fallout 3 or New Vegas, and I'm here to say that that is completely untrue. And I even think Fallout 4 is not only better than those games, but I think it's much better in certain aspects. I think it's much better in the combat. I think the world is much better and has more handcrafted components to it. And in total, I not only think Fallout 4 is a better game, but I also just want to address why I think it's a better game and why there's even some controversy in the first place. So going from Fallout 3 and New Vegas to Fallout 4 on that new engine was insane, and I feel like people today don't take it into consideration as much as we did back then. I remember in 2015, whenever they showed off the first gameplay, reveal of Fallout 4, everybody went crazy because everybody loved Fallout, but we were just ready for it to not play like a game that came out in the mid 2000s. Like, it's no surprise that the combat in Fallout 3 and New Vegas wasn't that good. I know a lot of people are going to say, like, that's the charm to the game, and yeah, it totally is, but it doesn't excuse the fact that the combat compared to the newer game is, it's not really a comparison, actually. So I don't want to come out of the gate and just make it sound like I don't like the old games. Like I said, I grew up playing Fallout 3, and then when New Vegas came out in like 2011, I also played that one a bunch. Like, I grew up playing these games, but there's a general sentiment, it seems like, that Fallout 4 is either just a straight up worse game or it's a bad Fallout game, which I don't think it's either of them. So in a way, I kind of understand how people say it's a quote unquote bad Fallout game, but the only bad thing about it was the dialogue system. That's what most people complain about, is the new dialogue system that came in, and trust me, I'm not a big fan of it either. I don't like the voice protagonist. I think it would have been a lot better if he wasn't voiced, and I think if the dialogue options were a little bit more open-ended, then I thought that would be better too, but it wasn't bad. People made it seem like it was just this colossal fail, when really Bethesda probably just wanted to try out something new, and it wasn't as good as the previous mechanic. So now let's talk some specifics. And the first thing is going to be with combat. And do I really have to say anything about the combat? I mean, just look at the gameplay. You can see how much of a difference it is. The only thing that's a little bit similar, or I guess actually completely similar, is VATS. And everybody knows VATS. VATS is awesome. Greatest addition to the game, makes it entirely unique. And I think it's like the same thing. But if you're talking about moment-to-moment gameplay, whether it's with melee weapons or with snipers or just SMGs, it doesn't matter what it is so much better in Fallout 4. So in the old games, whenever you're shooting, to me, it just feels like whenever you're watering the grass and the nozzle for the sprayer at the end isn't fully on all the way, so water starts leaking, and you can't really get a good stream onto exactly where you want to go. That's kind of how like the old games are. I mean, you point and aim directly at the enemy, and it feels like half the time the game decides whether it wants that bullet to hit or not. They also introduced different systems like crafting and whatnot. Honestly, I didn't really get into crafting too much, like making ammo and changing the weapons around. I would a little bit if the iron sights were just so terrible on some weapons, which they are. I would have to go in and swap them out or try to get something better. Those are really the few times that I actually used that mechanic of the game was repairing or anything. Or actually, there is no repairing. That was in the old game, but I do think that part of it is better, that you can customize your weapons, a little bit more freely. But again, it wasn't something I really used, so I don't know if I care about it too much. But again, in general, combat in this game is so much better, and it's only, thankfully, getting better. Like, Starfield's combat is really, really, really good. It is by far the best Bethesda has ever had. But too bad the rest of the game is really, really not that good. That's a whole other video. I could rip into Starfield right now, but I'll do that at a later date. So the movement also feels a lot better. In the old games, whenever you're walking around, it kind of just feels like you are a piece of board, like a wood piece of board, a plank that's walking up and down. When you stop, you stop. There's no momentum to your movement. But in Fallout 4, it's a lot better. You kind of feel like you actually have legs under you. When you go into third person, your legs are making different movements, like they're actually swaying left to right, and your hips kind of move with it. But this is definitely not to say that Fallout 4 is perfect in that regard. I cannot count how many times that I'm just walking through the world and I get hung up on something that I should not be hung up on. That's kind of just a Bethesda thing at this point, so I don't know. They both don't really get any points for it. All right, so now we're going to move on to quests, and I think the quests in this game are amazing. Like, I think the side quests are really good. They're all, for the most part, really entertaining. And there's some standouts, like the USS Constitution, where you have the robots on the ship in the Boston Harbor. I also think Fallout 4 had the best DLCs. Far Harbor goes down as one of the greatest DLCs ever made, in my opinion. There is a certain atmosphere to it to where you really feel like you're alone on this like spooky island. It almost feels like Lost, the TV show, in a way. But yeah, it's amazing. And the story in that is really good. It's a little bit deeper than you would think it'd be for just a Fallout game. Not to mention the world feels like it's, a quarter to half of the size of the regular Fallout map, but it's seriously amazing. And then you have Nuka World, like this other whole gigantic map that takes place in a theme park, like a Fallout theme park. So Point Lookout in Fallout 3 was really, really good. I would say that's definitely as close to as good of a DLC as we'll get from Far Harbor. But in my opinion, Fallout 4, again, it takes the cake on the DLCs. And if we're already kind of talking about the map, then Fallout 3 has 8,500 square miles, roughly, of map length. New Vegas has about the same, and Fallout 4 has double the amount. So this only means so much because you could have a game like all the Assassin's Creeds, where the world is 500,000 square miles and you just have endless things to do, but it's really just a copy and paste of the same thing you just saw, like a couple minutes ago. These games make it feel like you're really just traversing a wasteland and you're not really seeing the same thing. Even though you're technically just kind of going across waypoints, you're fighting similar enemies in a sort of way. It always feels varied, and they don't feel like it's just full of filler quests or you're just there to kind of be in the world. You're like actually living in the world. I do think New Vegas, though, has the greatest feel of like a true nuclear wasteland. And that's not even because I've seen the TV shows. So that doesn't alter my opinion in any way. I just genuinely think that is the best setting you can have for a Fallout game. And for Fallout 5, for some reason, I feel like they're going to go to like the Pacific Northwest, do Seattle or something like that. I feel like that would be pretty cool. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they just said screw it and go back to some sort of New Mexico. But they wouldn't rehash New Vegas, especially because it was made by a different studio, by Obsidian. So they would do something, but after the success of the TV show, I really could see them going back out west. New Vegas had a lot better vibe of being able to wander throughout the entire map, and it just feels like a genuine wasteland. Like that place actually feels like a nuke went off, and you're just trying to, rebuild society and get back into it. So New Vegas, in my opinion, definitely has the greatest feel of all the games as far as the open world, because it really feels like you're in a genuine open, dead wasteland. A nuke went off. Everybody's just trying to get their bearings together. So as you're wandering around, again, it feels like you're in a genuine wasteland. Opposed to Fallout 4, you do feel like you're in a wasteland in a certain sense, but it's a lot more city driven. And of course, I know the other games have cities, but they're nothing like Fallout 4. So yeah, I really just think Fallout 4 is overhated. Again, everybody says the story sucks, it's not a good RPG, it's not a good Fallout game, but it's kind of just popular to hate on this game. It's kind of just popular to talk shit against Bethesda at this point. And I think it's massively overblown. Like, they've been catching this flack since Fallout 4. I remember hearing that people were being disgruntled and saying it wasn't like the old games. Fallout 4 is amazing. It sold super well. Fallout 76 came. That game was absolutely horrible when it first came out. But over time, obviously, they've made it better. I still haven't really played that game. I'm not a big fan of it. I think the AI is genuinely the worst AI I have ever played against in any video game ever. I think it's so bad. And then they came out with Starfield, and we all know how Starfield went. Again, I'm going to make a separate video on that just to cover it, but Starfield was a massive letdown. I think all they had to do was just make like 3 to 5 alien worlds instead of 1,000 procedurally generated. I think that was a terrible design choice. I guess I understand why they did it, but I think it was a colossal mistake. And then there's Shattered Space on top of it all, which was kind of supposed to fix all the main issues with the game with the DLC. And then that DLC wasn't very good either. They didn't add any new enemies in, barely any new weapons, barely any new armor. The story was all right, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of warranted some of the flack that they're getting. But at the same time, it's a little much. If you're going to, throw flack at Starfield, leave Starfield where it is, and then leave Fallout where it is. So I'm just out here trying to defend my boy Fallout 4. I think it's one of the best games ever made. I think it gets overhated. I know there's going to be a subset of people who don't like this video. Let me know in the comments what you don't like about it, or if you just think the video sucks, let me know. That's cool with me. And follow me on Twitch because I'll be streaming a little bit. So let me know. Peace out. Bye.